I love that, by the way. Preemptive war is so funny. Communism. You like the weekend? Thank a union for that. Thank some communists for that, okay?
The 1967 Six-Day War was a war of no choice. The myth goes like this. In 1967, the Arab countries on Israel's borders were going to launch a genocidal war to destroy the Jewish state.
What the fuck was the dude's name, dude? Hold on. Who was it? Yeah, it was Edwin Montague. I was right. Man, y'all are fucking slow today, dude. Y'all are slow as fuck today. Yeah, one member of the British government stood against the Balfour Declaration, the only Jewish member, Edwin Montague. That's a cool-ass fucking name. Who asked what authority he could have as HM Secretary for India, responsible for dealing with nationalists and Muslims, when HM government proposed to declare his national home was in Palestine. The writer added to the declaration about Jewish rights and status elsewhere owed something to this opposition, but not his alone. Yeah. Don't even, Lake McGroove is 100% correct. Don't even fucking act like you're not Quick Draw McGraw when it comes to drama links, okay? Even the mere mention of Ethan Klein goes, everybody is like dialed in, ready to go. I got 7,000 links in a matter of seconds. But you can't get the one Jewish guy who opposed the Balfour Declaration? Shame.
And Israel had no choice but to launch a preemptive surprise attack and take them all out.
So in 1967, the Arabs mobilized for all-out war. This is going to be the big war where they finally get rid of this nascent Jewish state that is less than 20 years old. And Israel instead launches a preemptive war.
Now, the reality goes like this.
I love that, by the way. Preemptive war is so funny. Has Israel ever done a first strike that was unwarranted? Because they've never admitted to it, okay? It's always just a sequence of incredible coincidences where, like, Israel blows up everybody in the neighboring region, and then they say, oh, we did it because they were going to blow us up already. You know, preemptive genocide is what's going on in Gaza right now, because there could be a hypothetical genocide of all Jews living in Israel in the future somehow. No, that's not Shapiro making up concepts. That is literally the established narrative. That is the established narrative. That's in fucking history books, big dog. That's not like Benny Boy didn't come up with that on his own, I promise.
In a period of rising tensions between Israel and its neighbors, largely exacerbated by border incidents, Israel's invasion of Egypt in 1956, deadly Israeli attacks in the then Jordanian-controlled West Bank, Israel's diversion of the Jordan River's water into its national...
Yeah, Russia preemptively invaded Ukraine in a preemptive first strike because Ukraine, any moment, the Ukrainian forces were going to fucking roll their tanks into Moscow. Yeah. Yeah, America preemptively invaded Iraq because Iraq was, any moment, Saddam was going to do a Ba'athist 9/11. Yeah. This time, Ba'athist style 9/11 was imminent.
Water carrier leading to tensions with Syria and overall animosity. Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser concentrated Egyptian troops in the Sinai Peninsula and closed the Gulf of Aqaba to Israeli shipping. This was his brinksmanship attempt, derived from a legitimate place of fear, to intimidate the Israelis into behaving. Despite Nasser's support for the Palestinian cause, it should be noted that there was a time where he was willing to engage in civil negotiations with Israel. As Pape put it, in the 50s, Nasser was willing to explore the possibility of a deal with Israel which would allow Egypt to have a land bridge with Jordan, as well as the return of the Palestinian refugees from 1948 and the creation of a Palestinian state. Israel was, per usual, uninterested in such a peace. On June 5th of 1967, Israel launched a surprise attack on its neighbors where it took out over 90% of Egypt's air force and enacted similar devastation to Syria's. Since Israel immediately took out the air capabilities of its enemies, it was able to swiftly defeat them as they had no air cover. Israel then went on to claim that they had no choice in the subsequent Israeli occupation of Gaza, the West Bank, parts of Syria, and parts of Egypt were noble, given that they won those territories in a just war that they had no option but to start. However, in truth, Israel's actions in 1967 were strategic and not the result of necessary defensive measures. Israel understood that since its enemies boasted larger militaries in terms of sheer numbers, any Israeli win would be conditioned on a preemptive strike. Israel also wanted to finish what it started in 1948 and occupy the West Bank and Gaza, as Israel believed it would be incomplete without the West Bank. In fact, at the time of the Israeli attacks on June 5th, there was a US-led diplomatic attempt to normalize relations between Israel and its neighbors already in the works. But Israel had no intention of...
Very anti-Semitic. Very anti-Semitic attempt.
...providing the necessary time to the peace brokers, wrote Pape. He argues that Israel perceived the moment to be the perfect opportunity to correct history and lay claim to all of historical Palestine. I mean, Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin admitted himself that the official Israeli narrative of having no choice was bullshit. He said, "In June 1967, we had a choice. The Egyptian army concentration in the Sinai did not prove that Nasser was really about to attack us. We must be honest with ourselves. We decided to attack him." Israel pulled out of Gaza in 2005.
Well, that's the other thing. The Israeli right, yes, it's literal terrorist Menachem Begin, who once was, I believe, outflanked by Joe Biden, where Joe Biden told him that they weren't going hard enough. Way back in the day. But also, there's two speeds in Israeli society. The far right will flex openly, okay, and the liberal Zionist contingency will go along with these with this myth making, with these narratives. Make it seem as though it was like a preemptive strike because it was like imminent, invasion was imminent. It was going to destroy Israel, blah, 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 all this shit. And the right will always be fucking open about their intentions.
This is proof that Israel wants peace.
By and large, Israelis don't want to conquer Gaza. In fact, they left Gaza voluntarily in 2005.
No, the Gaza pullout wasn't done out of a desire for peace or for the sake of the Palestinians. Ariel Sharon pulled the settlers and the army out of Gaza for wholly selfish reasons. First, there was no genuine withdrawal from Gaza to begin with. Instead of Israel's presence directly in the Strip, it moved right outside the Strip and besieged it, exercising control over what goes in and out, water, electricity, and more. Israel was, and still is, the occupying authority. Second, Sharon pulled the settlers out of Gaza so that he could prove on the world stage that such a messy situation was not worth trying in the West Bank. He also wanted to be able to attack and bomb Gaza from the outside without the risk of hitting an Israeli settler. Controlling Gaza from the outside made the most sense for Israel, so that's why they did it. This quote-unquote disengagement from Gaza also allowed Israel to tighten its grip and redirect its focus toward entrenching the occupation in the West Bank. According to Israeli anti-Zionist Tikva Honig Parnas, those who occupied high levels in Ariel Sharon's government were, frankly, admitting that disengagement from Gaza was a U.S.-Israeli scheme that sought the world's approval for continuing other parts of the unilateral project. In fact, despite the early enthusiasm of Israeli politicians, many of them from the Labor Party, when it came to building...
Yeah, in 1982, Biden told Begin, even more women and children if necessary to get it done. Real freak. Biden has been probably one of the most rabid ultra-Zionists in perpetuity, like in American history. And it's so funny because he's Catholic. Like, he doesn't even have the theological justifications for it at all. He's just been the guy who loves it. A guy who understood, I guess, like Israel's importance and really, really believed in Israel's importance, which is what he famously said with the words, "If Israel did not exist there, we would build it." Like, really understood the importance of Israel as a colonial spearhead. Yeah, he said if Israel didn't exist there as a Jewish nation state, we would invent it.
If we look at the Middle East, I think it's about time we stop, those of us who support, as most of us do, Israel in this body, for apologizing for our support for Israel. There's no apology to be made. None. It is the best $3 billion investment we make. Were there not an Israel, the United States of America would have to invent an Israel to protect her interest. in the region. The United States would have to go out and invent an Israel.
You think Biden's favorite country would have been Turkey with all the hair transplants he's gotten? Damn. This is why I say he's like such a fucking disgusting monster, dude. What a fucking animal he was. Well, is. He's not dead yet.
Settlements in Gaza, by the 21st century, the consensus had shifted to leave Gaza for the sake of keeping the West Bank. In the words of Ariel Sharon's own senior advisor, the significance of the disengagement plan is the freezing of the peace process. Palestinians squandered every opportunity for peace. So I actually have a whole 35-minute video on this topic, so just go watch it. It's very detailed and covers all the main supposed peace negotiations between the Zionists and the Palestinians, and highlights how the Zionists are the ones uninterested in peace. And more importantly, uninterested in justice. I'll leave it at that for this video. If there's anything I missed, leave a comment and maybe I'll make a quick standalone video covering it the way I did with this one.
Great video from Overzealots, one of the
Today's
best and
program
brightest of the new crop of HasanAbi heads making big moves. Okay. Incredible video. Definitely go and watch it. Watch it slower for extra engagement. Comment on it.